everyone. Welcome to the Star Seeds and Lightworkers Collective. My name is Crystal, and this evening we're going to be having a very personal and interesting conversation with Mr. Thom Cantrall. He has written 16 books, a lot of them on the Sasquatch, and tonight he will be telling us his personal story and his experiences with the elusive creature. And I'm so excited to welcome you here tonight because he is a real expert. He has been studying this topic for a very long time, and he will be giving us a real in-depth view of this elusive creature and its habitats and its habits and what it means to be in contact with these creatures. Because as much as we've heard about the Sasquatch in different types of contexts, for example, in Native American culture, I know a couple of months back we had another person come by and talk about that. And it was more to do with the actual creature and in relation to Native American culture. And I think tonight we'll be looking at it again in the same context, but as well as well as in terms of also like a spiritual context as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think that Mr. Cantrall will give us a very good introduction and an understanding that we probably haven't had before. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Thom Cantrall. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Hi. Well, hello. Thank you very much for having me here. Yes, I've been dealing with these fellows for 67 years now. It'll be 67
Wow.
years in August. Uh, the first few years, I've got to tell you, most of it was reading, just learning, because my first experience with them was with the Jerry Crew incident, and I was 15 years old at the time,
Okay,
still
wow.
in high school. And my dad, the article appeared in the paper, so it was about October 4th, and he says, "What do you think about this?" He used to do that to me quite a bit, and so I read it. And to be truthful, I wasn't really sold on it initially, and then I started hearing about who else was investigating. And Dr. One can see his face, and I can't remember his name, uh, paleontologist, world-renowned paleontologist, has written 13 books on the subject and was well received worldwide. And I said, well, if he's looking at it and saying yes, perhaps I'd better look at it again. And that's when I started really studying in depth, and that was then through the Tom Slick expeditions
Okay.
in the early 60s, and then Patterson Gimlin and in 67. And then I was in the Navy at that time from 61 when I got out of high school till 1970. But about 1968, the Navy gave me my choice of duty stations, and I left the submarine and went ashore uh, at the Naval Ammunition Depot at Bremerton, Washington, at the Polaris Missile Facility there. So that put me on the Olympic Peninsula and right in their backyard. And that's when I started getting physical evidence, gaining physical evidence. I took my degree after I got out of the Navy uh, from University of Washington. And then uh, that said, it was a logging engineering degree, and I never worked a day in my life as an employee of a company as a logging engineer. I got out of college to find out what they paid, and and I had a little logging company of my own going at the time,
Okay.
and it was paying me more money than that. So what I would do is I ran my own little company, and then I would do consulting work. And most of what I did in the state of Washington, if you're going to build a road that crosses a stream used by anadromous fish, that's fish that go to the sea and then come back to spawn, like salmon, steelhead, that type of fish, you have to have a permit from the state. In order to get that permit, you have to do a report. And that's what I would do. They hire me to do those reports. Now they use their own company engineers for the ones that were close to the road. So I got the ones that were a 5 or 6, 7 mile hike So, but I would go in on a Saturday morning early and do my measurements and learned early on to sit down, do a drawing right there. Don't come back home, sit down at the desk, and then find out you've forgotten one measurement and have to hike back in another 14-mile walk in and out. Uh, so, I would sit down and I'd start drawing things up. That's when I started seeing them.
Oh.
All of a sudden, I'd see it peeking around a tree at me,
Oh.
and there was a whistle that they did. Pardon me, I don't whistle well,
Yeah.
but it's just an up down whistle.
Okay.
And I thought it was a bird, some type that I hadn't classified for many years. And then realized, finally figured it out. That's them talking to one another. Okay, I've got him in sight here, and that's what they do. They couldn't, it was a curious, they're very curious individuals and could not figure out why I was 7 miles off the road, sitting in the middle of nowhere where, I mean, this is old growth timber, 500 years old. There hadn't been anybody there in 500 years, and so they got curious why I was there. And so that's what brought them around. And I started seeing that. I never had a full body sighting, but lots of peekers and enough to know what's going on. Plus, hiking in and you step across a little no-name creek and here's an absolutely perfect, brand new 16-inch long footprint right in the middle of the sandbar. You know,
Wow.
and I figured out early on, those were left for me. That was to let me know they were there. That was evidence. And, I measured a lot of them and did a lot of work with that. And then I got curious uh, after I had finally had my first full sighting, where I knew what I was looking at and had time to do the Diane Fossey, James Goodall thing
Mm-hmm.
of just sit down and watch them for a while. Uh, a friend of mine and I had gone grouse hunting, which was a euphemism for being in the woods when the elk were screaming. If you have never had the opportunity to be in the woods when the elk are bugling, it's magic, and we always did it. So our excuse was we're going to go grouse hunting and then just follow the elk all day long, playing with them, and that's what we did. Finally busted up the herd, kicked off the herd master of the herd, his big 5 point bull, and decided to leave him alone and backed off. Of course, we were both foresters, so we weren't worried about getting lost or anything. But I started back towards the truck, and I saw a little opening in the timber, and that usually means a water hole. And of course, you never know what you can find out around a water hole back in the timber. So I sneaked up on it very carefully. There's a big Sitka spruce tree, and when I got to that, when I got to that, I just sneaked around it, and there were two bears. It looked like feeding along what it was. It wasn't a water hole at all. It was just about a 6 acre area of blown down timber, and there were two bears I could see feeding right along the edge of it on mushrooms. And so I sat down to watch the bears for a minute, and one of them stood up and looked around the area. It wasn't a bear.
Oh God. Oh
It
boy.
was not a
Surprise.
bear.
Surprise.
Yeah. I said, oh my heavens. So I
Oh.
just hunkered down there and watched. And then the other one stood up, and it was a male and a female. And I sat there for probably 20 minutes watching them as they fed towards me. They probably got as close as 35 feet. And the oyster mushrooms grow on those down logs, and they are absolutely
Mm.
delicious. I really wanted to go share with them.
Mhm.
Uh, And finally, the wind changed. I felt a breeze on the back of my neck, and I know, oh, I'm busted. I had four eyes go pop right on me, and so I just stood up and stepped out from the tree. I said, I wanted you to know, who was here, that I'm no danger to you. And he had stepped back so she could egress back into the standing timber. And as she did, she reached down and picked up a baby, put it on her chest, and he held on. And I hadn't seen that before, but it was a couple and they had a baby with them.
Oh,
And
wow.
she walked back into the woods and he turned to go. And I said, I want to thank you for the opportunity for you sharing your family with me like this. And he turned, and I swear to this day, he nodded at me before he turned and left. I really feel he acknowledged what I had said, or at least that I had talked to
Mm-hmm.
him,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was just that. And that was my first full sighting. So I decided somewhere along in this era, I needed to know, how much they weighed, and so I found a, a good track, and I built this rig. It's just a big tub, built it out of wood with one post on the bottom where I could nail a piece of wood that approximated the size of the footprint. I figured out how to tell the size of the square inches in a footprint by using a device that we engineers used. And so that told me how much foot was on the ground. So working from that, then built this big box and I would fill it up until it sunk down the same depth as the track I was working with. Okay. So using the same size foot as he was using, I had now had the weight because I would keep track of the amount of weight I was putting in there. Now I could go weight per square inch. And I did several tests to discover the true square on a footprint. And I found out that if you want to know the square inches of a footprint, use the length times 40% of the length of the length. Okay. So if the track is 15 inches long, the width would be 6 inches, 40% of 15. Okay. Six times 50, 15, 90 square inches a foot on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've got a 14 and a half inch track. That's 675 pounds.
Wow.
Okay.
That
All
that
right. Yeah.
that's really incredible. Tom, I just want to know if you could maybe change toward your back towards the wall or something. There's a lot of light coming in from the
Yeah.
window.
Well, unfortunately, I can't move much.
No, I. Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm pretty
Just turn
well locked
around.
into where I am because I'm
Okay.
pretty crippled up.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Maybe turn the chair. No, that's fine.
I'm just old. That's all.
That's perfect. So I do have a couple of questions. I just want to sort of get some
Certainly.
questions out there, if that's okay, and we'll continue because that's such a
Yeah.
fascinating story. And when you said that, because when you said, yeah, I saw some bears there, and I thought, I don't know if those are bears. When you're
Yeah.
talking about, I don't know. And then to have them sort of turn at you, is it sort of like, I mean, you must have been, I guess, shocked or afraid. Were you kind of like, oh, were you
Oh
afraid or
no,
anything?
no, no. I've worked so long with these guys and worked around them so much that there's never been any fear.
Okay.
Uh, uh, there's nothing to be afraid of with these people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they are basically. They're just another us.
Okay.
They're a people. They're a species of their own,
Mm.
but they're very intelligent. I believe they're more intelligent than we are.
Wow.
Number one, they don't want to have anything to do with us, so that
That's the
says a lot,
smartest
doesn't
thing.
it? Right there?
That's the smartest thing right there.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And uh, but yeah, I've just it's been forever that I've worked with them. I was walking same area. This is all out on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington
In Washington?
that
Okay.
that this that this is occurring. and it was my home, you know, and that's where I was logging, so I was in that area. That's where I was doing my forestry work, and that's where I was playing. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, come elk season, I was elk hunting, and deer season, I was deer hunting, and
Okay.
we fed our family on game. Uh,
Okay.
we never bought meat, and
Mm-hmm.
because of the fish in the river and the game in the woods. Uh,
And this was
and
in 70, 71?
Yeah, this was right in there. Yes, but
Yeah.
70, 71, 72, and right in
Okay.
that era.
Okay.
And by 74 or so, I was so pretty well versed in them. I had walked in one day and there was a big guy eating huckleberries, just standing at the stump eating, and I walked around a root wad, and there he was standing there. And I just said, "Well, hi, big guy. How are you today?" You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was about 10 feet away. He looked at me once, kind of did a double take, like, where in the world did you come from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then he took off. And so that was one of the times that got me started on my investigations of height and weight. It's because I took my own boots off and walked where he had walked. Now, the water had just dropped down where it was back in the banks of the river. It had been flooded in there. And so it was very soft. And by doing that, I could figure out the pounds per square inch that he was putting on the ground because I knew the pounds per square inch I was putting on the ground, and I could measure his track and compare it to mine and how far he sunk in the ground, how far I didn't sink in the ground. It was very, very enlightening. Very, again, being an engineer, you have to measure things, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, and that's what I did, and it was absolutely fantastic
Mm-hmm.
to do, and that started the investigations that led to the mathematics that I have in the book, The Proof,
Okay.
uh,
Now,
and
oh, sorry.
that, that's all right.
Yeah, so I just have a couple of questions here. And
Shoot.
maybe, so I had a question here from Kelly Wacker. And she said, well, I think you answered. She said, where did you see the Bigfoot? What state was this in? So I guess this was Washington, right?
Washington, right?
Okay.
Hmm.
What part of Washington are you in exactly? Like, where in Washington?
Well, that was on the Olympic Peninsula, which is far western Washington. I mean,
Hmm.
just above the ocean.
Okay.
Okay. From where I was probably 6, 7 miles straight. If you went west of the road, you'd be in the ocean.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. So,
And
but
I have another question here from Eternal Student. Thank you.
uh
I said, how old does Tom think the Sasquatch species is? Does he
oh,
believe that
I
they're related to humans? Well, I think you answered that question. I think there's another species. And
mhm.
question 3, does he think Sasquatch ever coexisted with humans? So I think we answered question 2. So the first question is, does Tom think that the Sasquatch, how old do you think the Sasquatch is? And
I,
have they ever existed with humans?
I think they predate us.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and as you know, we coexist, but have we lived together? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I do know that my teacher, who was 9 foot 3 inches tall, 17-inch foot, uh, has said that we have no powers that you did not at one time have.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is we have adapted to our environment. You have adapted your environment to you. And that's exactly what we did. We moved indoors.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When we're sitting across the table from or across the fire from one another,
Mm-hmm.
we don't need telepathy. We're speaking to one another. And in our bodies, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, it's
Right?
kind of muscle that if you don't lose it, you lose it. That's
That's right.
interesting. And
Yeah.
but I think that sort of getting back to her question about
Hmm.
does he think Sasquatch ever coexisted with humans? And I find that question interesting because at this time a lot of anthropologists, maybe paleontologists, are looking at the idea of different, like, did Cro-Magnon exist with other
Mm-hmm.
types of
Sure.
man? There's different conflicting theories about what our own ancestry was. And for example, people are coming up with the idea that maybe humans coexisted with dinosaurs, for example, that sort of thing. So we have a
No.
lot of information coming up,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if maybe
Dinosaurs,
that's
no.
more of where that question is going.
Yeah. Dinosaurs, I would say no,
Mm-hmm.
simply for time.
Okay.
Okay. Because they disappeared, 65 million years ago. Okay. And we're talking 50,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of difference in time.
Okay.
Okay. And now, as far as coexisting or interacting, interbreeding
Mm-hmm.
with other species, people being what they are going to do that. If it's possible, it's going to happen somewhere, sometime, someplace. Okay. Now, you get a human that gets distressed, a Sasquatch person helps them, feeds them, nurtures them. If it's mutually agreeable, yeah, it's going to happen. And I had same thing with, Homo sapiens sapien and
Neanderthal, I think. Yeah.
and now Homer, yeah, Neanderthals or any of the if they lived at the same time in the same place, they got together. That's just the nature of human.
Okay.
Yeah, uh,
Yeah.
that we get pretty homogeneous when we get together and live together,
Yeah, but I mean, it'd be nice to sort of live together. That would be
wouldn't it?
nice. It would be very nice, and
Wouldn't
I
it?
think that
Wouldn't
humans
it
could
be?
learn a lot because, and it's an interesting comment you make. You said that humans adapted the environment to them, and
Hmm.
and as a result, when you said, like, and you're right, when you close yourself off and you're in a home, you close
Hmm.
yourself off to all the information that's coming in through the sun, the moon, the stars, just
That's right.
Gaia herself. All that
That's
information just
right.
like cut off, and so that's why we don't have that telepathy, because we just cut ourselves off.
Hmm.
So that makes sense. I have another question here again from eternal
There,
student.
did we finish
Yeah,
everything on her
I think we
question?
did, because like, I mean, you were
Okay.
saying that did they coexist, and I think that you've
Hmm.
pretty much laid that out.
Yeah.
Another interesting question here from eternal student asks: do you believe that they are the same creatures as the skeleton remains found in Lovelock Cave? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I do know what that is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been a question to me. Are they? That now they were purported to be red-haired.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but Sasquatch can come in every color of hair that we have. As a matter of fact, I have a young lady that I know very well that's red hair. As a matter of fact, I have an artist friend who rode with me one day up into that area where they live, and this was in far eastern Washington. And she was with her father, who was my teacher, and she was so excited. She saw a human woman with hair the same color she had.
Oh.
Uh, difference was the lady's hair was just on her head, and hers was all over
Mm-hmm.
her. She's a character too. When she was younger, I'd be there on business with her father, and she'd be peeking from around his legs and between his legs,
Oh,
Yeah,
sweet. That's so
yeah.
sweet. Yeah.
Typical 7, 8 year old,
Yeah, of course, of course. They're all
Yeah,
the kids are the same. Doesn't matter where you are, right?
no, doesn't matter.
Doesn't
No,
matter.
most of the rock throwing you hear about and all that,
Mm-hmm.
that's juveniles.
Okay.
I mean, who gets in more trouble in any species than adolescent males?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why
and
your
they're the
insurance is
same
higher.
same thing there. They're sneaking in and throwing rocks in your campfire just so you know they're there. You know, there was a program on TV several years ago now, Doug Hatchek's show, Monster Monster Quest. That's what it
Okay.
was. And a group of scientists, Jeff Meldon was one of them, and one from Minnesota, had gone to a place in Ontario, uh, a lake that had the cabin had been torn up, and they had put a board down, a bare board, and with spikes sticking through. The idea was a bear would step on it, they wouldn't force their way into the cabin. Well, the step on it was a human footprint, about 15 inches long. And so they had blood for DNA and the work that was going on there. They worked there for over a week. Uh, then the last night they were sitting around the campfire, and something started throwing just little bitty pebbles
Mm-hmm.
up on the roof, you know. And what did they do? Did they investigate it? No, they all ran in the house and pulled the windows down. I said, you idiots, you know, go out and talk to them.
Exactly.
That's the first thing you do if you have any kind of encounter. Talk to them. Hi, my name's Tom. I'm sure glad to meet you. Do you have time to spend some time together and so we can see maybe learn a little bit from you?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, but
and
it just shows the different. It just shows a very different perspective of. And like, look, I'm not poo pooing science. I'm just saying that it shows a different perspective in terms of science as opposed to someone
hmm
like yourself who is an investigator. But it also depends on how you're coming, how you're approaching it. If you're approaching it from the place of love, which is what I sense that you're doing, I mean, you're curious, but it's a place of love and acceptance, and to say, hi, my name is Tom and it's happy to meet you, as opposed to, well, if you're just sort of in a silo and a very austere scientist, you're not going to get the same rapport. So
that's right.
it's
But
very, very silly.
I treat them I mean, that's exactly what I would do if I met you, Kristen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd be just happy to know
Yeah.
you, you know, and the
Mm.
same thing there.
Yeah.
There, I have sat on a hillside with 18 male Sasquatch and watched twins be born.
Oh, wow. I would like to ask one or two more questions, and then I'd like to come back to
Yeah.
that. How about
Okay.
twins being
hmm
born? That I think we
hmm
definitely want to hear about that one. But I just want to honor my audience
Yes, of
tonight and
course.
ask. So this is an interesting question here, again from eternal student. Can you smell them ahead of time? Um, like
That
Laura says,
smell,
you can smell.
that smell thing is entirely controlled.
Okay.
You can get it anywhere from a nice floral smell or aroma to, oh, the worst pig fat in the world.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. That's a defensive mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I don't know if you've ever had the missed opportunity to happen on the buzzards eating.
No.
They do the same thing.
Okay.
They upchuck, and what they upchuck is absolute. Well, you can imagine what they eat,
Yeah.
what it smells like after it's been through their acids and comes back up.
Hmm.
I guarantee you, you will join them in upchucking.
Okay.
Okay.
As it were.
And yeah, that's exactly what happens. So their smells are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never, other than being with somebody else, ever smelled the bad smell. When I, but now it seems like what one knows, they all know, and so one knows me, they all know me. I
Mm-hmm.
go to Georgia, and they know me.
But
We're sitting in camp in Georgia in 2015, I think, maybe 16, 15, 2015. 18 people around the campfire, and two of them come and stand right behind me at the campfire,
wow. But
joined us at the campfire. Because
it makes sense that they would know you, because if we're talking about the telepathy, they can send
hmm
messages across and say, "Look, there's this guy,
yeah,
and he's cool, so don't be afraid of him." That sort of thing.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, they know, they do, and yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, uh,
Okay, so that answers that question. And
mhm.
another question here: could they be related to the Clovis people?
I think they predate Clovis.
Okay.
I really do. I think they were here when Clovis came, and whoever was before Clovis.
Okay.
I think they predate us as the species, even though I classify them as Homo sapiens cognati,
Mm-hmm.
because if you look at their DNA, look at the mitochondrial DNA. It comes down your mother's side. It's the female side from mother, grandmother, great grandmother, right on back to the original. That's all pure human.
Mhm.
Okay. The non-human markers come in the well, your high school genealogy,
Biology?
you learn
Okay.
biology, yeah, where
Yeah.
you mass a small pea plant and a large pea plant and how many of each. Okay, when you get into that, that's where you find the male uh, markers that are not human. The kicker there is we got what 22.3 million uh, DNA markers on the bank, and they don't match any of them.
Okay.
We don't have any idea where they came from.
Okay.
They could be, and this is what I think they are.
Hmm.
I think they are a proto-human that we haven't found yet. We've
Okay.
only found 8% of the proto-humans,
Hmm.
physical evidence of the proto-humans that lived. Okay,
Okay.
so we still have 92% to find, and I think it's probably one of that. But it doesn't have to be. That's just gospel according to Tom.
Okay.
Okay,
But I mean but
okay.
that does make sense though. And just to sort of go back to a comment that Kelly Wacker made, she says the reason why they are comfortable around you is because they know that you're not a threat. And I
Well,
think that
that's very much the truth. Yes.
yeah.
Uh,
We're kind of losing
um,
you, Tom. Can you want to?
oh,
Yeah, you're kind of
sorry.
disappearing off into the corner.
Well, that's because I had to reach too far to get my dad
Oh,
Pepsi.
okay. Yeah,
My
I
ice
don't know.
bucket's over here in
Before
the
when we
garage.
had you, you were really facing front of me. I don't know if you can do that again. Just want people to see you. But also here, I have an interesting question. Actually, getting back to the concept what you were saying about about DNA. This is an
Hmm.
interesting question from a Toronto student. They say, do you think that they're related within the state or do you think they migrate to breed? And that would make an interesting
Oh
question
no.
because if they kind of like, depending, like different animals are very specific to a specific
Hmm.
area and then you can't find them anywhere
Hmm.
else. And
Oh
so,
no.
I don't know if that's the same thing that applies there.
Just as we were talking about with the story about my first full
Yeah.
sighting,
Mm-hmm.
they live in family groups.
Okay.
They mate monogamously
Mm-hmm.
and they mate for life.
Okay.
And they are so uh, dedicated to that that if an accident should take one, say in midlife, and they don't need another mate to help
Mm-hmm.
raise the children, they won't even take another mate.
Okay.
Okay, they're very dedicated to their mates in both directions,
Mm-hmm.
uh, as more so even than we should be.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and uh, yes,
I don't
the
know. I find that humans are really, when you look at it, you just find that humans are really the wayward child that just got lost.
that's
The black
somewhere
sheep
along
of
the
the
line. Yeah.
family, the bad teenager that goes off and just goes on drugs and just like there's nothing's gonna come from this one. And I think that that's sort of, I mean, I'm not saying, of course, there are good people out there. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good
Yeah.
people out there, and I mean, you're one of
Mhm.
them. And we all know, we all try our best to be good. We're not perfect, but we try. But I just look at human
Mhm.
race, and I just think to myself, what are we doing to this planet? And I think it's the fact that we're cut off, that we don't have that connection, and so it's just we're lost. I
Mhm.
don't know if I'm just sort of waxing
And
crazy here,
until
but.
just very recently in our history,
Hmm.
we had no choice about what we did to the planet in order to survive.
Hmm.
Now we're getting where we do. Now we don't have to murder all of the sharks in the ocean.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. We don't have to murder all the great tuna.
Hmm.
We're doing it.
Hmm.
And that's what my teacher told me is their greatest concern is what's happening in the ocean. If you look, only 20% of the Earth's oxygen comes from land.
Exactly.
And if you cut timber, it makes no difference because as soon as you cut that, something else grows back, and that photosynthesizes in exactly the same way that tree did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you get into the ocean where 80% of your oxygen comes from,
Exactly.
okay, you've got all these little uh,
It's like a plankton, I
plants.
think. A plankton,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Yeah.
there's plants growing too,
Mm-hmm.
tons and tons of plants growing, and they have little species of fish that tend those that keep them in line, and they live off of them, and that's fine because they have bigger fish that eat them, keep their population in line, all the way up to the giant tunas and the sharks. Now, you take that top layer off, the magnum predators, everything else blossoms, goes out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with the flood or the blossom of population by the little guys, all that plant life goes.
Mm-hmm.
When all that plant life goes, there goes 80% of our
Yeah,
oxygen.
exactly. But
Okay.
yeah. But it's getting to the point where we can't even eat the food. Like, I mean, and I remember seeing a poster once, and it was of a Native American, and it says, only when you've, cut down the last tree, only when you've poisoned the last stream, only when you've poisoned the last bit of air, do you realize that you can't eat the money. And
Yeah,
that's always stuck with me. And
I
I
love
can
that.
still see it, and I can still see the poster on the wall, and it's true. And we're at a point now where you can't eat the fish because there's too much mercury. There's, the reefs are dying, and like, I mean, I don't think, this is what I'm saying is that when you have a connection, and a psychic connection, a link, you realize that you're not, some people do, but you're not going to take a knife and chop off your leg. You're not going to take a knife and cut off your arm. You just wouldn't do that
Right,
out of
right.
self-preservation. So it's just that, I don't know. I think I'm just sort of going off on a tangent here, but it just seems that we have a lot to learn because we still haven't learned it. And you're right. We here we are. We can do anything at this point, and yet we're choosing to kill off, to chop off our feet.
Right,
I don't
right.
know.
It just doesn't make sense to
No.
me that we would do something like attack the great sharks for
Yeah.
nothing but a fin.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, uh,
And the
uh,
worst thing is that they'll cut off the fin and throw them back in the water.
right,
And
back in the water.
and
Yeah,
then it's like, but they can't move. And I mean, look,
yeah,
sharks are, they can chop off, they bite your leg and they do all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
and they're very crazy and dangerous. But I still wouldn't kill the sharks. Like, they're still a part of Gaia, and they're still their entities. And I don't know. I just find that it's just that's the part about humans that I just don't get it. And like, I mean, dolphins and all that, I can go on, but I can see how your teachers are concerned because we're also encroaching on their habitat, and that's the part that I find kind of sad. You know what I mean? Like, where's that going? You know
That's
what I
it.
mean?
And as far as the Sasquatch are concerned, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Uh, Look, in the state of Washington, there's 23,000 bear.
Okay.
Okay, there are 300 Sasquatch.
Oh wow.
Okay,
Okay.
so if one dies, they live a possible average age is 100 years.
Okay.
Ours would be too if we ate the same things
Yeah,
they ate.
exactly.
Okay, and so that means 300 Sasquatch in the state in 72,000 square miles. That's 3 deaths a year in 72,000 square miles. What's your chances of finding one of those three bodies if they didn't bury their dead?
Okay. I didn't know that. So they bury their dead. Do they? So they have like a funeral rite
Oh,
with
they
their?
do.
Oh,
They
really?
do. I got to sit in on one of those up at Prince of Wales Island in Alaska
Okay.
a few years ago. Well, 25 years ago now. But, but that's funny how time
It does
scoots
fly,
along
eh?
like that.
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
I
it
have
does.
another question here from Eternal Student,
Uh-huh.
and the question is: I wonder if they practice herbology and doctoring each other. Do they
Oh,
work with
they
the
do.
herbs? Yeah.
They have excellent healers.
Hmm.
That really excellent healers. Yes. Uh, another story if you got time.
Sure.
Uh, I had, we were in camp. Uh, this was a group of the old, well, what did they call it? Oregon Sasquatch. That's what it was, Oregon Sasquatch group. It was part of Autumn Williams, who had a TV show. It was part of her group. And by the way, I did research and found out that Autumn is doing very well for anybody that's interested in that.
Okay.
She's an absolute sweetheart,
Mhm.
but just got totally burned out on the negative of dealing with the people.
Okay.
She wrote a beautiful book, a great book back in 2010,
What's the title of the
and
book?
the title is this is what title?
Okay. Well, we'll come back to it. We'll come
Yeah,
back to it. But
my
yeah.
pardon my memory. I can see the book
Hmm.
and I can't see the title.
And her name,
Um,
her full name again is
Autumn Williams.
Autumn Williams. Okay.
Yeah, and oh, well, we were with the part of her old group, and we were camped southwest of Mount Hood in Oregon, Western Oregon, and the Cascade Mountains. And when I went into camp there, I was feeling so rugged. Well, I thought, and everybody else thought that the next day I was going to have to leave there and go to the hospital. It was that bad. I was terrible shape.
Okay.
I could hardly breathe. I could hardly move. And went to bed that night. And my tent mate, Sue, one of my co-researchers, married to other co-researcher now. They live in Canada,
Hmm.
BC. And we were. I woke up probably 5 o'clock in the morning with this buzzing sound coming out of my chest. Bzzz. And Sue says she was sitting up. She says, "Where's that sound coming from?" I says, "Right under my chest, right in the middle." And I had a burn spot in the middle of my chest. I have pictures of it around on my website and other places. And yeah, I had a burn spot right in the middle of my chest with this, and I thought it had been going on for 15 or 20 minutes. She
Okay.
told me later it had been going on for hours.
Oh,
That it had woken her up and for hours. And that next day, I was like a new man.
really?
They were treating my heart, and
Wow.
they'd done it. They'd keep doing it. That's what kept me going, and they've kept me alive for the last 12 years probably, and kept me going well, if not alive.
Okay.
But uh, that's what they can do. That's the type of thing that I've got another story that happened in Georgia.
Sure.
Uh, Same thing. At, in, I was in pain. I was at that time. I was waiting. This was in October of 2016, and we used to have an October gathering there every year. 2016, Bob Gimlin and I had gone back for that gathering, had flown back together, and also I want everybody to know that Bob's doing just great too. I had the opportunity to talk to him just very recently. He's probably my best friend in the world.
Okay.
The guy is absolutely wonderful. Uh, and he's 93 years old now, still
Wow.
going.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And I keep telling him I keep trying to catch up with him, but I'm still 12 years behind, 11 years behind. And but where was I? I was
So you
going.
had another story, but I think that maybe the book you're referring to, is it Enoch? A
Enoch,
Bigfoot
that's it.
story?
Enoch.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew it started with an E, and it was all there, very close. But
Hmm.
that's the one. I highly recommend it. It's a story of a young man in Florida and his relationships that he was drawn to, that she related and wrote.
Okay.
And beautiful story, beautiful story.
Hmm.
And you want to know how stupid people are?
Oh.
I heard two people arguing over it or discussing it, and one guy says, "Oh," he says, "I know somebody named Mike in Florida. That's probably who this is about." I said, "Yeah, there's probably only one person named Mike in the state of
There you
Florida."
go. There you go.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
stupid. But
I,
so you were saying how you felt that there was a buzzing in your chest, and you
yeah.
felt really. So that's kind of weird though, because I was sort of thinking that you were going to say something about, well, they had herbs, they maybe mixed some herbs and then gave it to you, but the
No,
buzzing in your chest sounds like there's something a little bit more
they go
tech. If
far
I
beyond that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Do you want
start
to
talking
explain
about
how that happens there?
talking about that. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about the Georgia
Okay.
incident.
Okay.
I was in my room. Like I said, had right shoulder. It was October and late November. I was scheduled for shoulder replacement surgery on my
Mm-hmm.
right shoulder. So I was by that time I was doing everything with my left shoulder, which was bone on bone. The rotator cuff was clear gone in it, but it was functioned better than the right one did. So I was in pretty literal pain most of the day, and somewhere up around 7, 8, 9 levels until you hit one of those bone on bone things. And then it went to 15 real fast.
Okay.
And and I went to bed and bang, I heard something hit the. I was these little cabins where we were. The front of the cabin was at ground level, and you walked in. By the time you got to the back and the balcony, you were 15 feet off the ground.
Okay.
Okay, it's just the way they built them. Well, I heard bang, something hit my window, and I knew what it was. And but I checked to see if it might be a raccoon. Of course, 15 feet off the ground, no trees right directly next to us. And, yeah, and pretty quick bang, here come another one. I said, "Okay, guys, what do you want?" And all I did was heard a giggle out from outside. And so I went to sleep. And when I was asleep, they woke me up and they were working on that shoulder. I could feel it being manipulated.
um
And
uh Sorry. So are you in your bed,
I'm
or
in my
you're in your
bed, yeah.
bed and you're alone in your room in your bed, but you
Right,
can feel
right,
your shoulder being manipulated? So
right.
do you have them in your room? Like they walked in?
Evidently,
You know
evidently.
what? Sorry, if you know what, this leads actually, I think, to an interesting question. Um, we had Penny Coons that came in
Sure.
a couple of months ago, and she did a presentation, and we had a lot of people asking questions about, can they teleport, can they open portals, that sort of thing. So if unless they, and I know you're saying they banged, and you're like, okay, what do you want? But unless you heard footsteps like stomping in, down the hall and coming to your room and
Hmm.
opening the door, that's not what I'm hearing unless you've left that out. What I'm
No,
hearing
no,
is
no.
that
They came in.
they came in. Now,
Yeah,
how did that happen? I don't know.
they came in with the doors shut. Okay,
Yeah.
directly into my room.
So then there's a portal
Okay,
going on there. No.
there's a portal thing of some type going on there. Now, that went on for 2 nights. On the last night, I was, during the day after they did this, I was free of pain most of the day, and by
Okay.
evening it start coming back. The last day, it came back early and it was coming back hard. I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I was on some kind of a ship.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Now I saw the console,
Okay.
and I don't think I was supposed to see that console.
Mm-hmm.
But there were Sasquatch people there, and there were other people there.
Well, and when you say other people, what kind of?
That's all I can tell you is there were other people. I could see their shapes moving.
Uh. Okay.
Okay.
If I may ask, I don't know if you're not allowed to talk about it, but were they humanoid?
They were humanoid in shape, and that they
Okay.
were up and down and had limbs.
Okay.
Okay, that's about as close as I could see them
Okay.
because I was on, and they were working on both shoulders. When they got done, I ended up back in my bed. Between then and the month till I had surgery, I had absolutely zero pain in my right shoulder. To this day, I have not had pain other than if I hit something wrong
Mm-hmm.
in my left shoulder,
Okay.
and that's been 9 years
Well,
in October.
okay. So where do we how do we unpack this? You know what I
They re,
mean? Because again, and even though I'll be honest, I'm the first one to admit I don't know a lot about the Sasquatch. I know a lot about a lot of different things, especially about
hmm
UFOs and all that, and I can feel that I'm comfortable enough to talk with a certain amount of authority on that topic. So, but I have read things, over the years. And so there was the idea of portals, which Penny brought up in her last presentation. And then, but there's also things that I have read, and feel free to comment on it, where some people believe that they're from another planet, in addition
could be.
to on another dimensional plane. Did you want to comment on that, and maybe lead into this ship? I don't know.
I don't know where they're from. All I've as I said when I
Okay.
in the beginning, I think they predate us here,
Mm-hmm.
but I have no idea of their origin other than their DNA says the mother was human, and the father was obviously not human.
Mm-hmm.
At least not Homo sapien sapien.
Okay.
Homo sapien cognati, possibly.
Okay.
That's wise man uh, related on your mother's side. That's
Okay.
what that's what Homo sapien cognate means. Okay, uh, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
have my own choice, but that's not I'm not official.
Okay. But
uh,
sorry, but um, so are we talking? So you find yourself on a ship. Now, is this related to the Sasquatch, the ship? Do you feel? And because
they were there.
if
That's all
there's
I
if
know.
there are 300 people, like you talked about it before, where you have a large square footage in Washington,
hmm
for example, you have only 300 Sasquatch,
hmm
and they seem to be very, 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 very acquainted with the woods. So they must obviously be here and they're living in the woods and all that. So
hmm
I'm having a disconnect, and not in a negative way, but it's just more of because I've heard of different things. How do we now connect the Sasquatch, which, as far as I know, live in the forest and that's about it, all of it, now come in contact with these humanoid beings on a ship, and are they working together? Did you want to, I don't know, try to unpack that or?
They were in that case. Yes, they were working together.
Okay.
Do they always work together?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
Did they come with them? I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, I wasn't allowed to see any of that.
Wow.
Okay, but well, maybe I wasn't there long enough to see any of
Maybe.
that.
Were they
But
blocking you from seeing it? Is that what you're saying? You weren't allowed to see it? Were they blocking
no,
you?
no, I was just being treated.
Okay.
It was like I was on the gurney, and they were, they had these individuals leaning over me. It's just like when I had my heart failure,
Okay.
uh, where I had a doctor calling out medications, and I was being injected and by the nurses, and another nurse, working this machine, another one
Okay.
working that machine. It's the same thing was going on there. Only they were Sasquatch people, and they were these other beings. I don't know, like, and I don't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know who they were, but when I asked my teacher, the answer is that's not for you to know at this point.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
and he's quite. Uh, that's one of his favorite answers for me,
mm-hmm.
actually.
Mm-hmm. Now that's interesting because that's actually going to dovetail into another question that I had, and then I'll go into other questions that other people have. But um, the Sasquatch and these other beings on the ship, were they talking openly or was it a telepathic
all,
communication?
all I could understand, I could hear talking,
Actual
but I,
talking, opening their mouth and
yeah,
talking. Okay.
yeah, but that wasn't between them and me. Okay, I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Okay. So
Okay,
if you were in Japan and two doctors are talking, you can hear them talking, but
right,
you're not going to
but I
speak
can't.
Japanese in order to understand it. Okay. So it's
Right,
something like
right.
that. Okay.
Now,
Okay.
see, if they want to, if they want me to understand, I would have.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been in situations speaking with them where we spoke a language that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That had interesting connotations too. Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Well, that's interesting. So you said that your teacher says to you, it's not for you to know. How are you
right.
getting that message? Are you getting that message telepathically, or sometimes you
Yeah,
talk or
yes, he
whistle, or
his is mostly telepathic.
okay,
There are times he wants me to meet him face to face, and we talk openly, and that's verbally.
okay,
But most of the time, it's telepathically
okay. And do you
because he may not be here. He may be on his home grounds over in eastern Washington,
okay,
400, 500 miles away.
okay? And do they have names? Like since we're
Oh,
talking about,
yes.
yeah, do you know what his
His,
name is, or you're not allowed to
his,
talk about it, or
no, his name is Akanisha.
Akanisha? Okay,
Uh-huh. And yeah, we had the clan in British Columbia where we did our research on glyphs. Before we did our research on glyphs, nobody called them glyphs. Nobody was even looking at them.
okay,
And we got that started and wrote a book on it.
mm-hmm.
And that's what started the interest. And now glyph is a pretty well commonly used name
Mm-hmm.
for them.
Okay,
Uh, but at that time it was not. And we did a 5 year study there in BC. And that clan, we got to know all of them. Raja Se was a young lady, young uh, teenage daughter of the clan leader. Uh, and she went, and this is again a little interesting too, because it tells you how they work to find a mate. They have uh, semi-annual meetings, regional meetings,
okay,
and at those, that's who they decide who's looking for a mate, who's you know, and who's gonna wants to have children this year, because they control very carefully control their birth rate.
okay,
If you're trying to stay hidden, the last thing you want to do is overpopulate.
yeah,
Okay,
mm-hmm.
and so that's very controlled. So Raja Say, her name was brought up at that meeting, and there was a young man in Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma, who was also looking for a mate. His name was Forshna. And so she went to Oklahoma and spent time there to see if it would work, if it'd work out between them. Okay. While she was there, my friend Arla Williams, Arla Colette Williams, saw her. And and then when they're done with that period of time, the two of them then return to BC, and they're part of that clan there.
Okay,
And Forstner becomes part of the clan where
okay.
they live. Okay,
So the man left his clan to join the woman's clan. So
to join the
does that make
woman's
it a
clan.
matriarchal type of society?
It does. It does.
You know,
More or
no?
less. The clan leader can be either male or female.
Okay.
It's a position of respect more than
Mhm.
anything,
Mhm. No,
and that's
it's just that because usually you have I mean, obviously in a more human context, usually in history it's always been the woman that leaves her family to go join the man's family, and there's a dowry and all
exactly.
that jazz. But now you have the man, like she went and
Hmm.
then he came back with her. So that sort of seems more
Right.
on the matriarchal side, which is why I sort of brought
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah. In that respect, and then of course she got pregnant,
Hmm.
and that she was the mother of the twins that I got
Okay.
to watch. And then 2023, I went up there. My old teammates up there, research partners, were having a gathering, and I went up there and I got to see her again. As soon as I landed there, in the area, she got a hold of me. Come to such and such a place. I knew where it was,
Hmm.
and she brought the twins, and plus she has another one now too.
Hmm.
The twins are 9 years old. No, 10 years old this year.
Okay.
Yeah, 15th of January, they were born in 2015. So they're 10 years old now.
Okay. Wow.
And yeah, and pretty big guys. There's
Okay.
one male, one female.
Well, that's
And
good.
yeah, that's what was wonderful to see him.
Okay. Well, we'll
And
we'll have to come back to the birthing, but I wanted to just sort of quickly ask. I have Karen here who says, "Do they have the ability to cloak themselves? Do you know anything about that?"
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you. I have followed them across the field and have them disappear right in front of me.
Okay. Poof.
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
And another thing I've had them do, and this will blow your mind, following tracks across the field. You get out in the middle of the field, it's 200 yards in any direction to the tree line,
Mm-hmm.
and the tracks just end, stop.
So does that go back to that idea of maybe going inside a portal? Because obviously they don't fly,
Either
so they're
going
not going to
inside
fly
of a
out of there
port, either inside of a portal or teleporting.
or teleporting.
Yeah,
Okay. And then they
yeah,
so they have the ability to teleport and go into different
right.
okay. Okay.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. I mean, there's so much going on here, and it's interesting because usually when, well, maybe I speak for myself, but usually when I think of Sasquatch, I think of really just sort of being very much close to the ground in nature, which they are. But
Hmm.
to have these other type of abilities, I find really raises them to a whole other level. And I think that that also dovetails into another question that I have here from Kelly Wacker, and she says, "Have you ever seen Bigfoot orbs or seen them disappear like the people say they do?"
Yes, I have. I
Okay.
have seen them just disappear into an orb and the orb was flying off. Uh, I worked with Penny on her book on orbs,
Okay.
and I put it together for her.
Mm-hmm.
And we were together in a room and photographing. And I actually saw them before she photographed them,
Mm-hmm.
which was strange. But yes, I have seen them standing there. Next thing you know, they morph into an orb and they're gone.
Okay. Now,
Hmm.
I think this other question that I have here, where it's a comment, I think, from Susan Johnson, and she says, and I think this is in relation to the time when you were on the ship,
Hmm.
and there was a different groups of people there on the ship,
Right.
and Susan Johnson says they are terraforming species that work with us on board ships, which explains their advanced technology. I'm not sure where they're from, but they're alien. I don't know if the
I
people.
would not argue with that at all.
Okay.
No,
Hmm. Did you want to give your
I
opinion on that, or?
no, I think she's got onto something there,
Hmm.
really.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, the ones I had, I can't tell you for sure they were aliens, but if I only had $1 left and I had to bet one way or the other,
Mm.
I would bet that yeah, I'd bet it on them being alien.
Okay. And Eternal Student is asking here, what did the language sound like? I know that you talked about some whistling that they were doing, communicating
Yeah,
amongst themselves. But is
yeah.
it sort of like
Their
even if,
language,
sorry, because even if you
th-
don't understand Japanese, it does sound like people talking, right?
yeah, right, exactly.
You know?
And that's exactly.
Yeah.
They it sounds to me, it's just kind of a I can do it.
Okay.
It's just their own language. That's what exactly what it is.
Okay.
Scott Nelson has done a great job of working up the the sounds, the oh, I can't remember the name for it, but the different sounds. He's
Like the
an
vowels
audio
or
spec.
something, that kind of thing, like
Not
vowel.
no, well, more than that. But where'd we go?
Okay, we're right there.
uh, and but he's worked up a an absolutely beautiful uh, work on these sounds and how they work together. and you might want to look him up too.
Okay.
Great, great. He's retired now, but he was uh, Navy,
Okay.
uh, 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 and his job was sitting and listening to radio uh, broadcasts and being able to tell whether they were gibberish or they were language. And so it's right sitting on a submarine with headphones on, listening. That's quite a job.
Yeah. What's the
Uh,
name? What's his name again?
Scott Nelson.
Scott Nelson. Okay. So
Yeah.
for our viewers out there, maybe if you want to sort of look up Scott Nelson, and his job was as a anthropologist. What was his job
No,
exactly?
it was his job in the Navy
Okay.
was to listen, to identify language.
Okay. So he's
He was
military.
yeah,
Okay.
he's former military. Then he taught at a college for 20 years.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay.
but very intelligent man, very well known, very, very a cool guy too. So, uh, yeah, and one of my friends.
Okay, great. That's nice. And I had somebody here make a comment, and I think this comment here makes sense because of the paranormal nature that they seem to have. And I
Hmm.
have here someone called Bigfoot Fadez podcast, if I'm pronouncing that right. I had one visit me telepathically in a dream. Now that seems to make sense that they could visit someone telepathically in a dream. Would
Very much so.
you know?
Yeah.
Did you want to comment on that one?
Well, I've had that happen myself, so yes, I know that it can happen. But usually, if it's my teacher, he wakes me up.
Okay.
Okay, and 3 o'clock in the morning, almost always. Uh, and I find out in my area that there's a conflux of energy spots at that time, and that's why it happens then. But there's other people that know a lot more about that than I do. But see, you got to remember, he got in contact me for one reason. This is a gift they left for me one time.
Okay.
Okay, it's an eagle feather.
Mm.
Okay, and it's a mark of my position as their scribe.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, that's where all the books have come from, are through him.
Okay.
Okay, and he would wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning to talk about whatever book I was writing at the time.
Okay.
Okay, and I've had that feather for 5 years now, I think. That since it gave it to me, and
Um. Oh, sorry. Go on.
yeah, that was a trip too because I was again inside a locked room, inside a locked facility, in a rehab unit. I was recovering from pneumonia, and in the middle of the night, I walked with a walker and had my seat lifted up and had a little basket down there, and I kept my oxygen bottle in there, kept my hairbrush in there, and a couple other things. And in the night, I'd sit down the edge of the bed, take my oxygen lines off, put them away, put my CPAP machine on for the night. Then in the morning, I reversed it. I'd take the CPAP machine off. First thing I did was took my hairbrush, brushed my hair, and I opened that next morning, opened the lid on my basket, and there's that eagle feather laying right on top of the basket.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So he's obviously coming in and out. I mean, you say he wakes you up, but at times he wakes you up physically. I mean, I don't know if he shakes you out of your bed, but at
No,
other
he just
times
he just wakes me up.
he just wakes you up. How does he actually send you vibes and then poof you wake
Yeah,
up? Or
yeah. He sends me his message to wake up.
oh,
Yeah, and so
that's pretty cool.
yeah. I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Can't we do this at 9? He said, no, you're not bothered with other people at this time. I said, I'm retired. I'm not bothered with other people at 9 either.
just sort of getting back to the whole idea with the feather. They said it shows that you're a scribe for the clan. Does that mean that they don't write? Because some people have had this question back and forth if they write a language or they don't.
They do write a language, but it's not one you're thinking about.
Okay.
Look at the glyphs. That's a written language.
Okay.
Okay. Look at our own history. The runes, the Scandinavian runes.
Okay.
Same thing.
Okay.
Okay. Figures made with whatever's at hand, and in that case, sticks and pieces of grass and whatever. Okay. Same thing they do. Now, do they write a book? No, they don't. That's my job.
Okay.
That's why I've written 16 books.
Okay.
Okay. Just finished number 16 this last month, and it's on the market now. And I'm supposed to write my autobiography, but right now I'm helping Barb Shoup finish her book. And we're just on the last phases of it, but everybody's in camp this week, so we can't get any work done.
Okay.
I'm helping Arla Collette with her book, getting it out. It's a children's book, so I haven't had time to get to my own yet. In a few weeks I will. I'm almost done. A couple of weeks, then I can start back on number 17, which will probably be my last book. Okay.
Well, that's going to be really interesting, and I think that all your books are available on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They are, but I'd prefer if you'd order them directly from me at my website.
Okay. And what is your website address?
Just you take my name there and put a .com behind it, and that's it.
Okay. Because I know we had a question, and somebody said, do you have a website? So there you go. We have your website.
Yeah, if I started out, I named it after my first book, GhostsofRubyRidge.com. But by the time I'd written 10 books, the title of my website was so long.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, at least you can, but it's easier to remember because we know your name. So, ThomCantrall.com.
.com, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't hide. There's idiots in the world, but we have a, dislocate button for them too.
and if people want to reach out to you, for example, with their own experiences, can they contact you and you can reach
anytime? I love that. I love questions. I love questions. And anything I can do to help anybody, I'm there for. Like sweet. I said, I'm pretty busy right now, but we will get it done.
Well, that's great. And sorry, go on.
I just think about the stuff that I've got to do yet.
Yeah, I know. You're just like, oh no, I have all this stuff to do. I know. It's just sort of like hanging over your head. So somebody asked a question here. Do you ever leave them gifts? Do you give them gifts?
Yes, a lot. And I make it simple. 2 things that I leave, mostly. Apples and peanut butter.
Okay.
They like apples. Apples are good for them, just like us. Peanut butter is good for them. Plus, I love to see that big finger in a jar.
Oh, really? They leave like a big mark?
Yeah. And it's a hoot. It really is. I just love it. Don't ever leave sweets, please.
No, I heard that's a big no-no.
Yeah, they don't have dentists.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do not want to meet my teacher's brother when he has an abscessed wisdom tooth. Okay. You got to remember, there's a major portion of their population that really want nothing to do with us. They wish we'd just drop off in the ocean and go away somewhere.
Yeah, that would be nice. But probably not in the ocean, because then we'd end up polluting it. And then, that'd be the worst. We'd fly off into space or something.
Right. We could feed sharks.
Yeah, exactly. We could feed the sharks. Why not? Give back.
Yeah.
But, so when we are talking about them having, because so far in the conversation we've been having, there's a lot of similarities and there's some differences as well. but the similarities are pretty much there.
Hmm.
Um, maybe do they have like a spirituality? Do they have like,
They do.
I don't
Well,
know if they get down and pray. No, but like, I mean, do they
uh,
have like a deity
they,
or something that they refer to at a spiritual level?
my first conversation with my teacher when I met him on the 25th of September, 2010.
Okay.
And he, interesting story how that happened.
Okay.
I had planned this trip just to get out of the house type thing. I was, you know, I was getting pretty tensed up in the house. Cabin fever was running amok. So I decided I was going to take a run, and I lived in southeastern Washington at this time. And I decided I was going to go out into the Blue Mountains for the day. There was a road up the bottom of the West Fork of the Touchy River that I had never been on. It had been closed. I'd been on the top of the ridge on both sides, but not up the river bottom. So I was going to make a trip up that road. And I was talking to Arla one day, and Arla is very much a psychic. I call her a medium, and she says we were talking. She says, "Is there a pile of wood on that road you're going on?" I don't know. To be truthful with you, I've never gone up this road before, and I don't know whether there is or not. She says, "Well, I see a large pile of wood, and there's a huge male Sasquatch with a red stripe on his chest looking for you." I said,
Okay.
"Well, what I'll do, I'll just drive up the road, and if I find a pile of wood, I'll set up my camp there, and that's where I'll be." And I did.
Okay.
And I had 4 or 5 cars pass me in the day. One set of 4 horses came by, and about 2 o'clock, I I just this is the way I do my Sasquatch searching now.
Mm-hmm.
I take my chair out, open my folding chair, take my ice chest with fried chicken hips and boiled eggs and Diet Pepsi, set that down beside me, my Kindle with whatever book I'm reading at the time, and sit down, open a Diet Pepsi, grab a chicken hip, that's a thigh,
Mm-hmm.
and open my book and read and wait till something happens.
Okay.
Now, like I said, they'll get curious and come in to see why I'm sitting there.
Mm-hmm. They probably smell
Now,
that chicken though. Probably.
that too. Uh, I've shared that with them before,
Okay.
and uh, and I did that. And about 2 o'clock, I get this. Then this was telepathically. I can't come out now. There's too much traffic.
Okay.
I says, "Oh, okay." I says, "Do you want me to leave then? Come back another day? Perhaps that would be better." I said, "I could have come on Tuesday as well as Saturday. I'm retired. I live on 6 Saturdays and a Sunday, and so any day." And I picked a big uh, box of apples for him, and I picked a big box of grapes for him on the way out, and asked him if he wanted the food. He says, "We have plenty. Look at the river." And I did. You could walk across the river on the salmon that were in it. And so I said, I'll just take them along then, the grapes. I'll leave you the apples and take the grapes because they won't last.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, bring food in the snow times. I said, "Okay, I can do that." And I was just back home 3 or 4 days. It was like Thursday or Friday that same week. And I get a message from him. "Please come back to the mountains." So I did, drove out, and right at the gate was closed on that road, but he was waiting for me right at the edge of the gate.
Okay.
And we had a long conversation. And one of the things he said is, "I know you're having trouble uh, reconciling what you're learning from us with your priesthood, because I do hold the priesthood."
Okay.
And, and I said, "Well, yes, that's not, doesn't coincide 100%. And he says, "Know this, we have the same creator. we serve the same God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I says, oh, I says, then what about Christ? Is Christ your Savior? No. Jesus Christ is the Savior for your people, not mine. I said, does your people have a Savior? Yes, they do. Um, who is that? That's not for you to know at this
Oh,
time. And yeah, but then I got thinking about it. How many saviors are there in the history of the world for different peoples?
okay.
Muhammad, Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
on, on, you know,
Okay.
look at the Oriental,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and their purpose is all the same, get these people at one point in time after they pass. You know, so it's easy to reconcile when you understand the basics.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but so would you say that they? So that sort of answers that question about the spirituality. But do they, for example, like if I say I'm spiritual, like if I pray in the morning, I
Hmm.
pray and I quietly sit down in the corner and I pray.
Sure.
Do they do something similar to that? Like in terms of a practice, as a like I
I think
mean,
I think their practice is more towards the land.
okay,
Yeah, I think that's more their religion is more
mm-hmm.
very land based.
Okay,
Uh, when I think about it, I think yeah, that's probably the very truth.
okay. And I wanted to actually ask you and to go back a bit and talk about the birth of the twins. If you could sort of give us that story, I think that's
Oh
just
yeah,
that's so
oh
beautiful. You
yeah,
want to sort of go into that and
oh
let
yeah.
us
I
know?
love that. I love that
Yeah.
event. That was the 15th of January 2015. And I had been invited, a couple of others had been invited, but couldn't attend. Arla attended, uh, I don't know, how do you say it? What's the word I'm looking for?
Hmm.
She was in attendance, but not there, okay?
Okay, so
Uh,
she was there in spirit, but not
and
maybe
spirit,
there
right,
in
right,
body. Okay.
right. And there were 18 male Sasquatch, okay? The Rajas's mother was the one who was uh, uh, monitoring, was serving, midwifing Rajase. Mm. And they had they delivered the first baby and took him down to the creek and put him in the creek and bathed him. He oh, did he let out a squall? You can imagine what that cold water was like on with him being dipped in it. Then they handed him off, and she went back. I said, well, perhaps she's delivering the afterbirth at this time. No, all of a sudden I see another head coming out. And it was Arla's voice that came to me and said, it's twins. And sure enough, it was. It was twins. And one boy, one girl. And she delivered that one, took it down to the creek, washed it off, and again, the holler, the scream, that serves the same purpose as a swat on the butt does to human babies. It gets their lungs started, it cleans their lungs out, gets their breathing going. And they, of course, they cut the umbilical cord and tied it off, same way they do in us. And which tells me that we're a lot closer related than most people think we are. Okay. And
That's
yeah.
really that's really beautiful because it shows how we're all the same, and so why do we hurt
Why do
that
we
which
hurt
we
other
are?
people?
Why do we hurt
Yeah.
other people? What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
I don't
understand.
understand that. I really don't understand that because it's
I
sort
never
of
have. Never in my life have I
they're not
understood
different.
that.
They're the
No,
same. You may be
we're the
more
same.
hairy,
Absolutely.
but they're the same. So I really don't get
Yeah.
it. I really don't understand it.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
what difference does it make
mhm,
how their parents taught them? That's
exactly.
all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. No.
those who are lucky enough to have parents who would
Yeah.
teach.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
and of course, so once they're born, we have that story. But now,
Hmm.
when it comes time and someone has passed and has transitioned,
I can't talk much about that.
no, okay,
No, no, because it's quite a ceremony that they do there.
okay,
And now I've been to, that's one I can't talk about.
hmm,
I can tell you I was chasing a bear. I was playing with a bear up on Prince of Wales Island.
okay,
I'd gone up there salmon fishing, got tired of catching fish, and went up in the mountains and saw this bear across this clear cut eating huckleberries, and decided to see how close I could get to him, see if I could get within bow range is what it was. And I did. It's about 30 feet from him. And when he saw me finally and took off up the hill, and I was just sitting on the stump watching him run, and this female Sasquatch came out. Tom, welcome to our land.
hmm,
And I said, hello, do I know your name? And she told me, I can't remember it now, it's been too long. But she told me her name, Hikilo, something like that. But she says, we have a ceremony we must do, and it's just out of your sight here. You would be welcome to attend if you wish. I'd love to attend anything that you do. I want to be in, and so we did. So we did. I
okay,
went with her, and I joined.
okay,
There were 18 males, but there were a lot more females here than there were at the birth, and it was a fantastic ceremony.
okay,
And like I say, they ended up placing huge rocks over the grave, and I have some pictures of graves,
mm-hmm,
and they're all buried with huge rocks and trees growing over the top of them. You'd never find the body in a million years,
mm-hmm.
or the remains.
Well, I'm
But
glad they don't because that would be a shame for their remains to be disturbed. That'd be awful.
certainly would,
Yeah,
certainly would.
yeah,
Look what they did with the remains back in the uh, hills back east and well in your area,
mm-hmm,
south of you in Ohio
okay,
and that area all the way across to St. Louis.
mm-hmm,
So those areas, they just were not good with them. Then sent the stuff to the Smithsonian, and now the Smithsonian says, "Oh, we never saw it." Well, they're
no, the
full of right
Smithsonian,
up.
don't get me started.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
get me
There's me,
started. Sorry.
me too.
No, no,
Okay.
no. I think we'll skip that one.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So,
Uh,
oh, sorry. Go on.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions here. And some people have asked, I mean, I think the answer to this question is no, but maybe you can correct me. Do they eat meat?
Oh yes.
Oh, they
Oh
do.
yes.
Oh, okay. Because
Oh yes.
I don't know why I thought they'd be vegetarian or something, but are
No,
they
me.
omnivore? Like
They're if we can eat it, they can eat it.
okay,
They eat things I wouldn't eat.
okay.
I've been offered grubs and
Mm-hmm.
worms and stuff. And,
Mm-hmm.
my body says I don't want those. It doesn't
No.
mean that I couldn't eat them.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
if I
But
were hungry enough, I could
I
and
guess,
would.
yeah.
But I don't happen to be that hungry lately.
Probably not. But yeah, I
Yeah,
guess it's that they eat fish. So I mean, they eat fish, berries, and other types of
yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Fish are a great part of their diet.
Okay.
You should see them fish. They're a sight to see.
Okay. But
I'll
they do. But they
tell you a
cook. But
story about that.
they yeah, sure. But they catch fish with their hands, or do they have like
Yeah,
implements that they spear
with
them?
their
I don't know.
everything I've seen has been with their hands,
Okay.
but there's no reason why they couldn't use a
Mm-hmm.
spear. But you have the diffraction of light that it makes that very difficult. I want you to know.
Okay.
I spent a lifetime trying to do that, and it's hard.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
Mm.
and but yeah, I was again out on the west end of the peninsula, but further south at the time.
Okay.
down between the Hoh and the Progressive rivers. And there's a little creek that runs across into the ocean. And I was about maybe 4.5 miles above the ocean and archery elk season. And I had hiked in to this up this creek bottom. There was a series of beaver dams, one after the other up the creek bottom, and found a place, got sat down, got I was in my the camo and found a good blind and I had to herd an elk walk right in front of me, but no bulls, no horn, so I couldn't shoot. And I even had a pair of wolves come by in front of me, and it was just a great day. And then I heard splashing coming up the stream. And so I was about ready to leave. And I said, well, let's see what this is first. And looked down there. I could see two individuals, two Sasquatch, out in the beaver dam in the pond, and they were running the salmon right up next to the dam. And then they'd reach in, and what shook me up is they'd look at them, and some they'd keep, and some they'd throw away. And I trying to figure out what's going on here. Mm. And finally it dawned on me. They'd squeeze them. And if eggs or sperm came out, they kept them. They were fresh. They hadn't spawned. If nothing came out, they were spawned out. And of course, salmon, when they spawn out, they contract their own form of cancer and die. Okay, so they don't want to eat anything in that stage at all. They throw that away. I only keep the fresh ones. And his fingernail looked like a knife blade. He would run it down from right under the chin, down the belly, all the way to the bottom, then across the other side, back up. And basically what he did is fillet them, leaving the tail on. Then he'd hang them over a branch, and the tail joint was still joined. So you had two slabs of fish on each side of the branch like that. And that was the way the Indians and Native Americans dried salmon. And I've often wondered whether they taught the Indians or the Indians taught them that trick. But that's what they were doing.
Okay.
And then a little bit later, I heard a third one, and it was a couple. They had a youngster looked like about 6 years old. He was having a ball in the water. He was just chasing the fish around that had gone around him.
Just like kids,
Yeah, just like kids. Yeah, yeah. And I watched them till it got dark enough that they had to give it up. And then when they went down the trail, I followed them back out. But, yeah, that was on. If anybody knows the area, that was on Goodman Creek on the Olympic Peninsula.
Okay.
And about 3.5 to 4 miles above the ocean.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, speaking of food, and you're saying how they dry their fish similar to the way people who are Native American dry that. Now, here's another thing. I do know, for example, that Native Americans have a tendency to smoke their fish as well.
They do a lot.
So then that means the next question I have is, can they actually start a fire? Because that's actually a question from Kelly Wacker. Says, do they know how to start a fire to cook their food? Do they cook their food? I don't know.
No, they don't. And I asked about this.
Okay.
Why you don't use the fire? Mm-hmm. He says, we have the capability. We know how. Mm-hmm. We come on lots of fires, and we could, and sometimes we take advantage of those for a short time. But the last thing we want is a point of signal going straight up in the air, pointing out exactly where we are.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay. So don't want the smoke trail.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I don't think I'd want that either, especially since they want to keep very quiet. But that being said, I do have another question that I find interesting from a Eternal student. Do they know how to sing and dance or beat drums? Do they do any of that kind of stuff, or that kind of like celebration at a wedding or like the birth of a baby? We have a big blowout. Do they do that kind of thing?
They do. They do all three of those actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can hear them at night. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
singing to one another across the hills.
Oh.
And Georgia was wonderful for that. To lay there in my tent and listen to that all night long. I think
Hmm.
it's just a wonderful spot for it. Um, yeah,
Okay, that's interesting, and
yeah,
this is getting to another aspect of what I was asking before about do they build fires and stuff like that, and we find out they don't. But how do they take shelter? Because I have a question here from Bigfoot Fadez podcast, and it says, I keep hearing that they build teepee type structures with branches. Is
they
that what they
do,
do? Or they
but
go into caves? Like what do they do?
that is, yeah, that isn't for shelter for adults.
Hmm.
That's for kids.
Okay.
That's that's where we put the kid while mom and dad are gathering food.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, the young kids up until they're weaned stay with mom, and then they're up until early teen or maybe late into as beginning of adolescence. They'll be more with their parents than anybody else. After that, they'll be together with their peer group, and there will be an adolescent male who's in charge of that group. Okay, does two things for him: teaches him the responsibilities he's going to need to have his own family. Okay, and teaches him how to hunt and how to find food for his group. Okay, and that will stay together until the individuals take mates of their own.
Okay.
And again, that's controlled. Uh, yeah, they have a very great lifestyle. I would love to emulate it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah, it seems to be similar to Native American traditions as well, because when you're
very much.
saying that they are with the mother for a long time, then they go with their own peers, and then they have a male that
Yeah, right.
is control the peers. That's very very interesting because it's a type of lifestyle. It's funny because we have a gentleman that we've worked with. His name is Luke Blue Eagle, and
Mm,
he is a Native American healer and shaman. And he talks about
mm,
how one of the issues, because we were talking with him before, and he was saying that one of the issues that we have, especially in the society that we've noticed, that we've talked about, is young males who do not have a sense of place in this society. A lot of young men are really sort of suffering in this society, and I think that it's interesting how in a Native American culture, young males are given a task or they're given a bit more responsibility,
that's right.
and that's the reason why they're not sort of flipping out, which is what happens
Hmm.
in modern civilizations type of societies, that we've
Yeah.
forgotten how to have a sense
Well,
of
they're not, yeah,
you
they're
know what I
simply
mean?
not, they're not taught that.
No,
Okay.
exactly.
Mom, and I'm going to probably get wailed on here,
Mm-hmm.
but mom is usually the reason for that. She doesn't want her little boy stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't want him to have to do all these things that, you know, and to go through this and that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Those teaching moments are absolutely necessary.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, mom can't do that alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have two in a couple. That's why their system works, and ours doesn't seem to be
No,
working very well.
no, it doesn't seem to be working well at all. And I mean, of course,
Mhm.
obviously, if you're in a situation where you are threatened in a in a domestic situation, it's not going to work. But for the
That's right.
most part, there's a lot of this sort of like, well, I can do it on my own, and I don't need a man,
Right,
and all that kind
right,
of stuff. And I mean, look, it's and I think we're sort of mixing up what it means to be an empowered female,
right.
and that's one thing, but it doesn't mean that you have to hate on the male either, because there's also that war and that dichotomy between male and female. But we're going off topic. We
No,
can we got
no,
I digress,
it's
but like I mean
uh,
it's a
it,
part of it though,
yeah, it really isn't off topic. It's really part
Okay.
of the same thing,
Okay.
because yeah, the mom and dad separate. Well, he's an evil SOB, and
Yeah.
she's no.
Mm-hmm.
You got kids. As far as I've gone through that, but kids never heard a bad word from me about their mother whatsoever, not once and ever.
Mm-hmm.
She's their
Yeah.
mother, and even if she's not doing right by me, that has nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're an
Okay.
evolved soul, though. A lot of people are not evolved enough to get past their ego, and they use, and the thing is, they use children as a pawn in a relationship,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not putting the children first. So there's an ego aspect to that as well.
Right.
But I obviously don't. I mean, I wasn't there, but I don't get from what you've told me and what Penny has told me that this is an issue, that their souls are so evolved. And again, it goes back to that whole idea about being connected to the earth that keeps you grounded, literally and
That's right.
figuratively. And so it stops you from doing all that BS.
Right.
I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, but
I think you're dead on.
mm-hmm,
I think the Sasquatch way of life
mm-hmm.
is correct. That's what we should be
Yeah.
doing. Number one, we should have our population under control,
Mm-hmm,
so we're not overstressing where we live. There's plenty here for us
mm-hmm,
of everything we need if we maintain it right and don't overstress it.
mm-hmm.
Okay? Have you ever noticed whenever we run out of something, it's going to be the end of the world, but somebody's invented something new. Prime example, they used to harvest whales for the oil,
Oh,
and
God.
that was the oil used in industry.
Yeah.
There was no other. Now all of a sudden whales started running in short supply, and they were in the middle 1850s. They were in a total panic about what they're going to do for machine oil, because we're beginning this mechanical age,
Mm-hmm.
and what are we going to do for lubrication? Then somebody found, you know, uh,
Like black oil,
crude oil.
crude
Yeah,
oil.
yeah, yeah. And we can refine this, and does the
Mm-hmm,
same thing.
mm-hmm.
We don't need a whales.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's going to same thing's going to happen again. Well, it is happening because we're getting away from crude oil
Mm-hmm.
and going to other resources.
Exactly.
Okay. And that keeps evolving with people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the stress of the time
Mm-hmm.
that does that revolving. And
Yeah.
that's the same thing. The Sasquatch don't need that. Okay. We've become an industrialized society by our own choice. Okay. They have it and they don't need it.
Yeah. But it's interesting because when you're telling the story about whales, just awful, because whales are such gentle creatures, and I mean,
They are.
it's such beautiful. I mean, I could just
They
go on,
are.
and so the idea of whaling just grosses me out.
I, as I said, I was on a submarine for many years,
Yeah.
and while I was in the Navy, and they'd get around us, and they'd be around us for days.
Oh.
You could hear them on the sonar,
Yeah.
and there was one which was called carpenter fish, because nobody knew what it was. It was finally identified as a sperm whale.
Okay.
They just click and clack and back. You listen to it, sounds like five people building a house all at the same time.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I used to spend my spare time a lot, was
I
in the
can't blame you. Oh my God.
sonar room, just listening.
That is so
Yeah,
beautiful. And
yeah.
it's interesting because you were talking about the whole thing with the whaling and how people figured out to use other types of oil. And I mean, to be
Mhm.
honest, it's not an excuse to use whale oil, because I mean the Romans and the Greeks were using olive oil. They were using oil in their
Right,
lamps. They
right.
weren't whaling, so there's no excuse. But anyways, but it's interesting how that kind of thing comes about. And in some ways, maybe I'm sort of just waxing poetically here, but I feel that in some ways Gaia is saying, look, if you need something, I'll give it to you. Like I
Mhm.
will, send you the crude oil. I'll make it so that you dig to the ground and the crude oil comes up.
Yeah.
So I think there's some level of Gaia being involved in that kind of process as well.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in terms of that though, um, I do have a couple of other questions here which I think are kind of interesting.
All right.
So let's take a look here. We have here. Well, I think AML had asked us about, are there ceremonies or information that the Sasquatch have shared with you but are forbidden to speak about. So I guess if you're not forbidden to
What?
speak
Yeah.
about,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I mean, I
Yeah.
think you were saying about, well, the whole thing with the ship. I think that was kind of strange,
Yeah.
and I think there was also the thing you were saying about the burial. I think there's.
The
Is there anything
funerals. Yeah.
else? Is there anything
Yeah.
else that you don't talk about? Or?
There are other things, yeah, that I can't talk
Well, you
about,
talk
even
about
what they are.
it.
Even what they are. Yeah.
Okay, so that answers that question. So I'll go into
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next question here. So this is a question from Brenda Berlin. Did the Sasquatch teach you anything about guns and hunting? I mean, I don't know if they'd have guns. I don't know what that is,
They
but
don't have
they don't have guns.
guns,
No,
but they
I have
do hunt.
heard that hunters say that the Sasquatch were angry that they were carrying a gun. Yeah, I would be angry too.
No, no,
You
they're
know?
listening to it's what their mind says that they're going to do with that gun.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm.
I've carried a gun a lot in the woods and never had problem one
Okay.
because they know that gun's not going to be ever be pointed in their direction
Mhm.
whatsoever. Okay, and they know that because they know my mind.
Mhm.
If you remember Rick Stewart's story when he was on Marla's place, and he's this guy's a federal officer. Okay,
Mhm.
by law he had to carry a gun all the time. Uh, he got stopped on the trail. Step away from Marla. So he did. Why are you carrying a gun? It was inside his jacket. It had never come out.
Okay. But they knew.
But they knew. But they knew.
Mm.
Yeah. And he answered, he says, I'm sorry. He says, I'm a federal agent. I'm required by my job to carry a gun at all times, but it's not for you. I would never take a shot at you, but I'm required to carry it. Oh, okay. So everything was fine after that.
Okay.
But they had to know
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
Hunting is a necessity. Okay. Uh, our we don't have capital predators anymore on land. We don't have wolves everywhere. We don't have cougars everywhere. Okay. And so game populations, they can destroy themselves uh, by overpopulating. And then you get disease in them and the whole thing goes south. So by keeping the population at the proper level, we found in this day and age, the best possible way to do that is hunting.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't mean idiots with guns. I mean people who do it properly.
Mhm.
Okay. This does a couple things. It keeps the population where it's supposed to be, and it provides food for families.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The idiots are the ones that go out there and shoot for because of the size of the horns.
Yeah.
I've had lots of recipes, but I've never had one for horns yet.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I want the meat. I'm not there for the horns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean I'd pass one up? No, I wouldn't. But I would also prepare 250 pounds of hamburger
Yeah.
if I had to make sure it was all used.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Okay. So it's an ethical thing.
Mhm.
And again, we get back to the young people with lack of ethics
Mhm.
because they've never been taught this.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with hunting. Uh, uh, it's it's part of our not only traditions, but it's part of our needs. Okay. Because of the work we're doing for the herds as well as what we're doing for ourselves.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there again, we need good management too.
Exactly. No, for
Okay.
sure. Speaking of young people, we actually had an interesting question here from a Eternal student asking, I mean, maybe you know or you don't know, but so we talked about the young males. Now, when it comes to the young females, How old are they when they start producing, like reproducing? Are the males
They'll take,
older? The girls are the same. Are they the same age? Like what age do they start? You know, because I mean, as for humans, for example, a woman gets her menstrual cycle, and then
yeah.
she's able to start reproducing. About once she gets her menstrual cycle,
Hmm.
is that sort of the same thing that we're looking at here?
They will start that at about the same time, but they don't mate
Mm-hmm.
until they're 18, 19, 20,
Okay.
in that range. About the same time
Mm-hmm.
most female mate.
Okay.
And I told you the routine that goes through there. Raja say just decided she wants to mate, and she's she's eligible, and
Mm-hmm.
here's fortunate down in Oklahoma that wants a mate, and they look like a good match. Let's put them together, see how it works.
Okay.
So
And
she goes to
are babies able to walk at birth, or how old
the,
are they to become before
uh,
mobile?
about the same as ours.
Okay.
They're just bigger.
Mm-hmm.
They're no, yeah, you never saw anything cuter in your life.
Oh
A
no.
little fuzzball, 24, 25, 26 inch long babies.
Oh.
They are just absolute.
Do they
You
look
just
like
want to.
Ewoks? I don't know if not to
Yeah,
be.
kind
I mean, I didn't
of.
want to be,
Yeah,
I didn't want to insult anyone, but it's like little Ewoks are so cute. And,
yeah,
you pinch
they
them
do.
and
Yeah,
little
yeah.
fluffs. You know.
Yep.
Okay.
Little pointy head
Little
sticking up.
pointy heads.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the
That's
ears.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. They're absolutely precious. Absolutely
Oh,
precious.
sweet. Oh, that is so
Yeah.
sweet. That is precious. And so when you because you've been writing a lot of books now, so is there a theme in terms of what they want us to know? Like when you say you're writing the books on their behalf, I mean, obviously it helps to go and read the books, but is there certain themes that they're looking at when they ask you to write a book?
Yes, very specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Three of them have just been mostly case studies, like the last one I just finished. You know, uh, Sasquatch America. There's 20 case studies in there from top, uh, mostly from top investigators that talk about not only the Sasquatch uh, sightings that they've had, but how they go about their investigations and what they're finding. Okay. There's three books along that line, different reports that I have. Then I have the book, The Proof, that goes through the mathematics that I taught you, and one little very simple thing that you can do to absolutely prove whether a picture's fake or real, and if it's well, basically the way I've got it laid out, it proves the existence of Sasquatch and proves the veracity of the Patterson-Gimlin film at one time, and it does it with what's the clue, the thing that everybody wants? Why don't we have reproducible scientific evidence?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Okay.
Okay. And that's uh, very prominent on my website. If not, get a hold of me and I'll show you.
Sure.
But it's something called intermembrane index. And what that is the ratio of your arm length to your leg length. In all primates, you have a that ratio. It varies from primate to primate. Gorillas, it's 122. We're 72. Gorillas' arms are longer than their legs.
Mm-hmm.
Chimpanzees, 105. Their arms are barely longer than their legs. Sasquatch, 84. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I can show you a frame, 89, I think it is, maybe 79, in the Patterson-Gimlin film where you've got the perfect picture of Patty's back. She's walking away. Her arm is extended straight, her leg is extended straight. Measure the two. Take that uh, ratio. It comes out to 0.84.
Oh.
Okay.
Interesting.
Now, the only way for me to get from my set 0.72 to her 0.84 would be to add 4 inches to my arm, somewhere between my wrist and my shoulder.
Okay.
Now I can't just do it here because then my arm would be out of
Mm-hmm.
sync. So you got to put 2 inches below the elbow and 2 inches above the elbow. So it cannot be faked.
Okay.
A hand extender just extends the length here, nothing up here. So the arm's out of balance. So you can't use that. So it has to be what it is. Whatever that intermembrane index is what it is. So when I do that to Patty and it comes out to 84, it proves that she is a species other than human.
Got it.
Okay. All right. That's scientific, reproducible proof. You do it to yourself, you'll find it 72. Now, sure, that's the center of the bell curve. There's going to be, the variations, the standard deviations, of course, but that's the basis for everything. And I've done it. Andre the Giant, 72. A midget, 72. And everybody I've ever found, 72.
Interesting.
Okay, take the various Sasquatch films. This is the I don't know, the 4th of July film where the female comes in, picks up the little baby Sasquatch and walks out.
Mm-hmm.
84. It was hard to get a good one on her. Paul Freeman's work, 84. Okay.
Okay.
So some of the stuff from Canada from back then.
Mm-hmm.
Is he in BC or Alberta?
Okay.
But up there somewhere, he's a well-known individual. A lot of his are 72, I'm afraid to tell you. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. But and on that note, do you by any chance have any photos that you could show us? Because I don't think you prepared any kind of presentation. But did you have any photos that you could maybe show us, or if you have anything? I mean, obviously there's going to be photos and stuff on your website, but just for those of us who are here now, if you
Yeah,
had
how
anything
to
you wanna
get them
show us.
up.
Okay. Do you have a book? No, Or,
Pardon me?
you don't have like a book or anything. 'Cause I think are they on your computer?
They're on my computer, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If I'd known about it beforehand, I could
Yeah,
have
I
sent
know.
them
I
to
just thought, I just thought maybe, we
you.
could sort of have like a quick, view
I
of the
don't. It
photos.
wouldn't be quick unless I knew how to do it.
That's the thing. We don't want to sort of like
I'm,
start.
I'm afraid we'd be here at midnight sipping
I
tea.
But
You saw how long it took me to get sound.
I know. It was like we were kind of like really 11th hour, like, oh, time's a ticking. But it's good it came through. And I have one last little, interesting question here, unless other people have other questions. But okay, I do have a couple of. I have here a question from Bigfoot Fedez podcast, and they ask, why won't the government tell us about them by this point? And I want to just add a little dovetail on that one though, because is the government aware of them? Do they even bother to study them? Because I know we talk about UFOs, for example, and the government says, yeah, no, we're not studying UFOs, but obviously they are. Is that the same thing with the Sasquatch?
Same
Are
thing.
they saying, no, we don't want to study this, no, and then we turn out, and then they turns around that they have like all this stuff? I don't know.
I think that's what you're going to see.
Okay.
Very, very much so. I don't know why they do it. I think
I don't know.
it's probably more a religious reaction than anything. People, that's what the negative reaction I run into are people saying that, believing it's going to undermine religion, where it's, totally different, totally off the wall.
Yeah, that's a BS excuse. I mean, I'm being polite.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
BS. No. I don't fall for that at all. And so
Yep.
that's just stupid. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's similar to suffice it to say, I think it's similar to the UFOs where they have all this information, but they just don't bother because they just
Yeah.
it's a weird
U.S.
mentality that they have where they say, well, we don't want to send out it because people will panic. No, they won't.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. U.S. Forest Service. I don't know a U.S. Forest Service employee that has not had experience with
Mm-hmm.
them,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't talk about it in the office.
Yeah, just like you don't talk about UFOs if you're a pilot, or else you're
Right.
grounded. You know.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. All of a sudden, yeah,
you're behind a
yeah,
desk. Yeah,
yep.
yeah, and that's the
Look,
end of it.
look what happened to Paul Freeman.
Yeah.
Like, it's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
The guy worked for the Forest Service, had his experience, got his film, and Forest Service called in some nudnik and said, "Oh, that's all fake." So, Forest Service, that's fake.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
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 there you go.
yep.
I just I actually had a little comment here. Somebody was asking, do they knock on trees? Let me get that question here because I don't think I said it. Said, do they do tree knocks, and if so, why? That was from Kelly
Communication,
Wacker.
communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were in my Sue, my one of my research partners, and I were in camp up in
Mm-hmm.
the Cascades, just in the shadow of Mount Hood in Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
and we were at the end of the road. It was wilderness area all on three sides of us, and where we were in camp there, we had a tree knock every 20 minutes
Really?
from different sides. Just all of them, just letting the other ones know that we're there,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids. That was so
Again,
fun.
the kids.
Again, the kids. But one of them was running through camp as hard as he could go and tripped and fell. Whoop! I was in I was in bed in the tent, and I got laughing so hard I couldn't hardly move. Oh, and he,
Oh, that's so cute. That's so great. That
oh,
do they laugh? Like, do they kind of have a
oh yeah, oh
chuckle
yeah,
and
oh
tell
yeah.
jokes and say, somebody walks into a forest and then
No, no,
two
I don't.
Sasquatch
I've
walk into
never
a
heard him
forest.
tell a joke, but they do recognize humor.
Okay.
And my teacher has a very active sense of humor. He'll pull them on me sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. He would never let me get a picture of him,
Okay.
and finally one day he did. He photobombed me, and it was 2 days
Really?
later. Yeah, it was 2 days later before I found him in the picture,
Oh
and
my
he was just
God.
laughing up a storm. He said, "I wondered when you were going to catch
Oh my
it."
God. And do you have that photo on your website by any chance?
I don't know, but I can put it there.
Yeah, I think people would want to see that. I know that I would love to see something like that because then there you go, you have a photographic proof. And
Mhm.
so I think we're going to probably draw to a close, but I want to ask one last question.
Certainly.
Again from Kelly Wacker. This is an interesting question, and the question is, have you ever seen them being courted with other cryptids, or and like a dogman or a rake? I'm not sure what a rake is. Or do they have like disagreements with different types of, like, I mean, I don't know if the
They
Mothman
don't.
falls into that sort of thing, like would they have an issue with other
I
types of,
I think they know how to get along with everybody.
okay,
But
unlike
no,
humans.
yeah,
Yeah.
personally, I've never seen them with other. Barb Shoop has, I know. Arla has, I so no. Barb has some absolutely wonderful evidence that's going to be in this book and the next one she's going to write. Uh, and it's all stuff that's happened to her around home. But I mean, things like fairies. And I never believed in a fairy in
Yeah.
my life till I watched the video that she was getting and how she was getting it. And we did a calculation on it and measured the distance that image moved. There was a big stump there. Measured the distance from there to where it passed where she was standing with the camera, and then took the camera frames and figured out the time, and it was moving at 206 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just
That's
one thing. And she's been
wow.
cut in getting the absolutely greatest stuff in the world, uh, and also
Her name
she
is Barbara. Sorry.
Shoop, Shupe.
So Barbara Shoup. So people,
Yeah.
we want to definitely check out her work, and she has a book
Oh
coming
yeah.
out. Do you know when she's coming out with this book?
As soon as I get done doing it.
Okay.
We're putting pictures in, and they're in camp this week.
Mm-hmm.
We have camps every month through the summer, and this
Okay.
is the first one this week.
Okay.
Even though
Great.
even though it's raining up there,
Okay.
unfortunately I can't camp anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, Barb is a wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
uh,
I know, speaking of books, I know that you said you're writing your 17th book.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
do you know when that's coming out? And do you have a title for it? And what's the theme of the book? I think that'll be our
That's
last question
it's
for
going to
the
be
evening.
it's going to be an autobiography.
Okay, autobiography about you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody wants one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be basically two parts
Okay.
because my life is basically two parts,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be interesting to learn about because I didn't know about it till just a week or so ago when it started to dawn on me what's happened in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where we are with that. But uh, I recommend if you like that sort of thing, pick up Sasquatch America.
Okay.
I like the work in that book.
Okay.
Sasquatch. Uh, it's a blue one. I can't remember the title of it. Don't
Okay.
get old. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Uh, your memory goes first. Uh, yeah,
But I mean,
I,
people can see your work on your website, so they'll be able to find
absolutely.
the book.
All my
And
books are on there.
okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay.
and short descriptions of them. There's stuff there that's logical. There's different things, different aspects and
Mm-hmm.
of the work and of the class of people. There's some there that are basically they're novels. Uh, Marnie's story for one. After Armageddon is another one. Ghosts of Ruby Ridge,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote these as a novel. The storyline in them is false. It's a novel, but everything about Sasquatch in them is true. And I do that to get past the haters.
Okay.
It drives them nuts.
Okay.
You know, you can't do this. This is all wrong. Hey, it's a novel. I can say what I said. You know,
Exactly.
I could have made that neo-Nazi colonel gay, and he couldn't have done a thing about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm in total control.
Yeah. Is the book
And
the 21 Days to Destiny? The real story of Bluff
yes,
Creek?
yeah, yes, that's the one.
Bluff Creek, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's fantastic information about that.
Okay.
Okay, you'll
Okay.
meet two Sasquatch face to face on that
Okay.
one.
Okay,
And
great. Wow.
in 2014, we went down there for 2 weeks and
Mm-hmm.
just unbelievable. We had five face to face in camp,
Wow,
and
that is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's really
and
impressive.
and we're going back there in August this year.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a motor home to sleep in, so I
Okay.
don't have to try to camp. But I'm taking a group down there in August this year.
Okay,
It'll be
that's good.
but yeah,
And
back to that.
is there a way that if somebody is interested that they could maybe take part in this camp, or do you have to be a member?
That that was filled up.
Oh, that's filled up.
On
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, but if they
but
can find information
but
on your website though, right? If they wanted
yeah,
to for
right,
next year maybe,
right,
that kind of thing.
right, yeah.
Okay.
Barb has 4 campouts a year,
Okay.
sometimes five,
Mm-hmm.
and it's get a hold of her. Squatching with Barb and Goldie
Okay.
is the title of her group, her uh, YouTube
Mm-hmm.
site. She's got 600 videos on there.
Wow, that's a
She
lot.
she she did actually a predator type video that's had she's had movie people after her. She went to Hollywood a couple of weeks ago about them wanting her to use that video.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, she's got some great stuff,
Well, that's
and she
good.
and she's one of the most wonderful people in the world.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm really
Hmm.
happy about that. And I want to tell people that we will be putting all the information down in the comments below. So,
Hmm.
and including Tom's website and his books. So please check out his books on his website and buy his books from his website. That'll help him out a lot. And
Yeah,
I just want to say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's just my name.com.
Okay, so Tom,
Make sure you get that A in the last A in my name, because
okay.
and the H in the first name.
Okay, so Tom Thom.Cantrall,
Yeah, right,
CANTRALL.com.
right,
Perfect. So definitely check
right.
out his website and check out his books and like he said, if you're interested in taking part in camp next year, because I think this year is kind of filled up, but maybe
Hmm.
next year you can look and find information about that. So that's really interesting if you really want to sort of take your understanding and your own personal research the next level. Definitely take part in those camps. I think you will be meeting
Yeah.
a lot of cool people, and you know what? A lot of the people that I've met so far, you and Penny, have been absolutely amazing and wonderful people. So
Mhm.
clearly, it must be a nice group of people that
It
go on these trips.
it's the most fantastic group of people I have ever been associated with in my life. Well, you know Penny,
Yeah,
and and we've got 55 other people saying exactly the same way,
wow, that's
and
interesting.
everybody is just so kind to one another, and we learn from one another, and and I'm kind of too old to do much anymore, but I can smile with them.
Exactly. And what a wonderful smile it is. So I think that we're going to call it a day. I want to tire you out. I know you're kind of been through a lot recently, and and I'm glad that you're doing well, and that we'll be looking forward to your next book coming out. So
Thank you
especially as
very
an
much.
autobiography, and I just wanted to say thank you, Tom, for being such a beautiful human being and for bringing this topic to us, because no one else is doing this kind of, I mean, there are people out there doing research, but you're really sort of bringing us a true understanding because you've had such a close relationship with them. And I feel that we can learn so much from you and from your teacher and his clan. We
Right.
could learn so much. And you know what? It's interesting because it's, we're talking about Sasquatch, but I think that they can teach us how to be more human. How about that?
I think you're absolutely
You know?
right.
How about that?
Absolutely, totally right. I
Yeah.
think that's a wonderful
Yeah.
thought too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been such an unbelievable trip.
Yeah.
I just I'm
You're so lucky. You're lucky to have had that.
I
You're
am
very
I'm the
lucky to have had that, to
most
have those
fortunate
memories.
person in the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'd like to share that with anybody that knows. Until you've done the Diane Fossey
Mm-hmm.
type of research, you
Mm-hmm.
don't understand it.
Yeah.
I've had people their only sighting was two ridges away, a mile and a half away,
Mm-hmm.
as it's going into the timber, and they can tell you how they have their babies and all of that. Yeah, of
Mm-hmm.
course they've never seen it, have no idea, but they'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
embellish.
No, yeah. Get yourself in the woods and take a look, see
Exactly.
what's really going on out there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Get it down to the ground, huh?
that's right.
Yeah.
But you gotta have feet on the ground. That's what it's all about.
Exactly. Okay, well,
Hmm.
I wanted to just say thank you so much, Tom, for being with us and for taking this time to share your story and your experiences. And if you happen to see your teacher again in the coming weeks, tell him that we appreciate him, and I'm hoping that at some point humanity will catch up to the Sasquatch and will try to be as human as they are, as it were.
He,
You know.
he said you just did.
Thank you so much. And
Crystal, it's been a ball. It's been
that's really
absolutely
nice.
amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you as well to all our members tonight. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Like and subscribe, please. And you can find out more information about Thom and his website and the research that he's doing in a book that's going to be coming out soon. And I just wanted to say, if you have any more questions, just reach out to him. He's happy to answer your questions and to get in touch with him. It seems like a really nice group of folks that are open and willing to share information. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And we're sending you love and light. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care, everybody. And again, thank you, Thom, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.